BTS News Today. That night, the atmosphere inside the studio felt warmer than usual. There is something hanging in the air, something that is difficult to explain, but it was so strong that everyone present could feel it. Jungkook sits in the middle of the room, with Jimin beside him. Their gazes speak more than words. No carefree laughter as usual. There are no light jokes that they often throw when they are in one room together. There is a silence that contains thousands of meanings, and the army who witnessed this knew that something big was about to be revealed. Since its inception in the music industry, Jungkook has always been known as a person full of energy, cheers, and often hides his feelings behind his warm smile. He is BTS's golden magne, someone who seems invincible in many ways. However, that night, there was another side of Jungkook that he rarely showed to the public. A more fragile, more honest, and more human side. Jimin, who for years has been Jungkook's best friend and brother, looking seated with her body slightly tilted forward, her eyes stared intently at her beloved magne. As if he knew that whatever Jungkook would say, it was something that had been stuck in his heart for a long time. Then, with a slightly quivering voice, Jungkook finally began to speak. "I've wanted to say this for a long time," he said quietly, his voice almost whispering. "But I always felt it wasn't the right time. I always thought, maybe later, or the army will understand without me having to say it. But I realized there are some things that must be expressed, so as not to become a burden on the heart." Jimin looked at her deeper. His eyes began to glaze over. Jungkook took a deep breath before continuing. "Over the years, I kept a lot of things to myself. I used to hide my feelings, not because I want to look strong, but because I don't want to burden others with my thoughts. I'm afraid if I start to open up, I will make the people I love worry. I don't want you to see my weak side." The increasingly intense atmosphere made many people who watched this moment through the screen begin to feel their chest tightness. Army who have followed BTS's journey since the beginning know how strong Jungkook is, always trying to look in their eyes. But at the moment, she no longer strives to look strong. He was just being himself, a young man who had fears, sadness, and the fatigue he had been hiding. Jimin raised his hand, patting Jungkook's shoulder gently. However, Jungkook only smiled a small smile, a smile filled with deep meaning. "I want you to know," he continued, "that I once felt lost. I never felt good enough, even for you, Army, which is always there for me. I'm afraid to disappoint you. I'm afraid that one day I won't be able to live up to my expectations." His words instantly struck the hearts of many who heard them. How could someone like Jungkook, which is so loved and respected by millions of people, ever feel like you're not good enough? How can someone who always gives everything on stage, who always tries to make others happy, have you ever doubted yourself? Jimin, who had always been one of Jungkook's closest people, finally could no longer hold back his emotions. He lowered his head, wiping away the tears that began to flow down his cheeks. "You know," she said hoarsely, "we all love you, not because you're perfect, but because you're Jungkook. That's enough. You're always enough." Those words instantly made Jungkook take a deep breath. It was as if the burden he had been carrying for so long began to lift little by little. Army who witnessed this moment from all over the world was not able to hold back tears. Social media was immediately filled with expressions of support and love for Jungkook. Jungkook nodded slowly, then smiled, this time more sincerely. "I know," he said, "and I'm grateful. I just want you guys to know that if I ever look further away or more silent than usual, it's not because I don't care. I just need time to understand myself. But I will never leave you. I'll always be here." The words immediately touched the hearts of all who heard them. Jimin, who is still trying to control his emotions, take Jungkook's hand and hold it tight. "We will always be there for you too," he said. "Always." This moment became one of the most emotional in BTS history. Not only because Jungkook finally dared to reveal his heart, but also because he showed that although he is a superstar, he is still a human being who has feelings and fears like everyone else. For the army, this moment is a reminder that Jungkook, Jimin, and all the BTS members are not just idols they admire, but also friends who have become part of their lives. And that night, amid tears and smiles, Jungkook finally felt a little lighter. Because for the first time in a long time, he no longer keeps everything to himself. Jungkook looked at Jimin with still slightly teary eyes, as if to make sure that the words of his best friend were really real and not mere consolation. The silence that enveloped the room did not feel awkward, it was full of meaning. This moment isn't just about Jungkook finally opening his heart, but also about the deep connection that had been so strongly established between her. Jimin and the rest of the loyal army were by his side. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, Jungkook finally let out a long sigh, trying to muster up the courage to continue what he wanted to say. Jimin still clasped his hands tightly, giving such sincere support. I often wonder, have I done enough for you guys? Jungkook's voice sounded low, almost like a whisper filled with emotion. I know I always say that I want to give everything for you guys, but I also realize that I can't be perfect. And sometimes, that imperfection scares me. Jimin shook his head slowly, his eyes still teary. Jungkook, you've done more than enough. You don't always have to be perfect. We don't love you for your incredible performance alone. We love you because you are who you are. Jungkook looked at Jimin, then smiled a little. A smile full of gratitude, but also a little bitter. But I want to always give my best, because I know how much love you have given me. I want to repay him in the best way I can. Jimin couldn't hold back any longer. He pulled Jungkook into his arms. He hugged her tightly, as if to assure her that Jungkook would not have to bear the burden alone. You don't have to prove anything to us, Jungkook, he whispered. We know your heart. We know how hard you tried. And we will always be there for you, no matter what happens. Jungkook returned the hug, closing his eyes for a moment. Out there, ARMY who witnessed this moment felt such strong emotions. They know that Jungkook always gives everything. But tonight, they also want Jungkook to know that he is loved unconditionally. Not because of his achievements, not because of his accomplishments, but because he is himself. After a while, they finally let go of the hug. Jungkook wiped his slightly wet eyes. He looked at the camera that captured this moment. ARMY, he said, his voice still shaking a little. Thank you for always being with me. I may not always be able to express this in words, but I hope you know how much I love you. On the screens of mobile phones and computers around the world, thousands, even millions of ARMY cried together. They flooded social media with messages of support, ensure that Jungkook will never feel alone again. Jimin smiled, patting Jungkook's shoulder affectionately. Now, let's continue this journey together. No one is left behind. No one walks alone. Jungkook nodded, and for the first time that night, his smile looked lighter. It knows, no matter what happens, he will never be truly alone. Because by his side, there is always Jimin, the members of BTS, and of course, ARMY who always loved him with all his heart. And so, that night of tears and honesty turned into a night of hope. A fresh start for Jungkook to walk more lightly, without again keeping all the burden alone. The silence that had enveloped the room was slowly replaced by such a real warmth. Jungkook still looked at Jimin, as if trying to convince himself that his friend's words were true, that he need not always be perfect. It is not necessary to be always strong, because there are so many people who love him unconditionally. After a long sigh, Jungkook finally leaned his body on the chair. It was as if the weight he had been carrying slowly began to lift. His still slightly puffy eyes were now beginning to be filled with the light of hope that had previously been clouded by doubt and fear.
Don't give up on your future. We all start losing.